At some point in your life, you stop asking why people leave, and you start asking something much harder. Why you kept letting them stay long after they showed you who they were. Because if you're honest with yourself, you always knew. You knew when their energy changed. You knew when the effort stopped being equal. You knew when you were the only one trying to hold everything together. But you ignored it. Not because you were blind, but because you were attached. Attached to who they used to be. Attached to what you thought you had. Attached to the idea that if you just tried a little harder, things would go back to how they were. So you stayed. You stayed through the silence. You stayed through the confusion. You stayed through the moments where you felt like something was wrong but couldn't prove it. And slowly, without even realizing it, you started shrinking yourself just to keep them. You lowered your standards. You accepted things you once said you never would. You convinced yourself that maybe you were asking for too much. Maybe you were overthinking. Maybe you were the problem, and that's how it happens. Not all at once, but little by little. Until one day you wake up and realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You're tired, but not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. It's deeper than that. It's the kind of tired that comes from constantly giving energy to people who don't give it back. Constantly trying to understand people who never tried to understand you. Constantly hoping for something that deep down you already knew wasn't coming. And the hardest part isn't that they hurt you. It's that you let it happen longer than you should have. And that realization, it hits different because now it's not just about them anymore. It's about you, about your choices, about your patterns, about the way you kept choosing people who made you feel uncertain instead of secure. And for a while, that truth is uncomfortable because it forces you to look at yourself in a way you've been avoiding. It forces you to admit that sometimes you were not protecting your own peace. You were sacrificing it just to keep someone else. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Everything becomes clearer. The excuses stop making sense. The mixed signals stop being confusing. The silence starts sounding like an answer instead of a mystery. And suddenly, you're not lost anymore. You're just facing a truth you didn't want to accept before. That not everyone who comes into your life is meant to stay. And not everyone who stays is meant to stay forever. Some people are just there to teach you something and then leave. And the lesson is not always gentle. Sometimes it comes through disappointment, sometimes through betrayal, sometimes through silence. But the lesson is always the same. Stop giving your energy to people who don't value it. Stop trying to fix what was never yours to fix. Stop holding on to something that is already gone just because you're afraid of being alone. And this is where everything starts to change. Not overnight, not in a dramatic way, but quietly, internally. You begin to pull back, not out of anger, but out of clarity. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening. You stop chasing conversations that only exist because you keep starting them. You stop trying to prove your worth to people who already decided how they see you. And at first, it feels strange because you've spent so much time being available, being open, being the one who tries. And now, you're choosing yourself, and that shift, it's uncomfortable because choosing yourself often means letting go of people you once thought you couldn't live without. It means sitting with silence instead of filling it. It means facing loneliness instead of running from it. And that loneliness, it feels heavy at first. It makes you question if you made the right decision. It makes you miss people who weren't even good for you. It makes you romanticize memories that were never as perfect as you remember them. But if you stay with it, if you don't run back, something begins to happen. The silence becomes peaceful instead of painful. The loneliness becomes space instead of emptiness. And in that space, you start rebuilding. Not the version of you that tries to be enough for everyone, but the version of you that knows you already are. You start understanding your value without needing someone else to confirm it. You start protecting your energy like it actually matters, because now you know how it feels to lose it. And once you reach that point, everything shifts, your standards get higher, your circle gets smaller, your peace becomes more important than your attachments, and you stop reacting to everything. You start observing, you start noticing patterns in people. You start seeing through words and paying attention to actions, because you've learned the hard way that words can lie. But behavior rarely does, and maybe that's the real growth. Not becoming cold, not becoming distant, but becoming aware of who deserves your time, aware of what you tolerate, aware of when to walk away without needing an explanation. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is leave quietly, without closure, without drama, without trying to make the other person understand. Because closure doesn't always come from them. Sometimes it comes from you deciding that you've seen enough, felt enough, and you're no longer willing to stay in something that costs you your peace. And if somewhere in this, you saw a part of yourself, if you've ever stayed longer than you should have, if you've ever given more than you received, then maybe this isn't just a message. Maybe it's a reminder that it's okay to choose yourself now. And if this spoke to you in a way you didn't expect, you can stay here a little longer, or let it go when you're ready. But either way, don't forget this moment, because this might be the moment you finally stop holding on and start moving forward.